Hi, everyone, and welcome to a special episode, an Insomnia Insight episode. Coach Alina, welcome.
Hi Daniel, and hi everyone.
How are you? How have things been?
Perfect. I hope you're fine too.
All right. No, I'm doing really well. And we were talking before we started recording. We talked a little bit about how you're getting busy working with this app and your own your own pursuits and everything. It makes me really happy. So happy for you, Alina.
Yes, thanks.
All right. So what we're going to do today is I invited you, especially Alina, because I really wanted to go over the actually 2 emails from a former client of mine who has actually been a guest on the channel. It's Michelle from one of the success stories, one of the Talking Insomnia episodes. Not our colleague Michelle, but the other Michelle who's been a guest on the channel. And it's about speed bumps. And as I said before, it's such an important topic. I really want to get into it and share this one on the playlist, etc. So without further ado, let's take a look at the first email that I got from Michelle, and this was on October 25th. I'll just read this. Hi, Daniel. I've rebounded a little bit. My situation isn't as bad as it was before, thanks to all I learned in your course, but I recently noticed some behaviors that I didn't know were harmless, quote unquote, until I realized it was insomnia rearing its ugly head through different masks. I started getting thoughts like, you better do this or else you won't sleep. So I started changing some of my environment, sound familiar? And it got to the point of, I have to wear a specific set of pajamas, otherwise I can't sleep. Started reverting some of the old environment, but the specific pajamas are still an issue. I keep telling myself that pajamas don't make me sleep. I'm the one producing sleep, but then hyperarousal kicks in and it turns into yo-yo nights and days with, well, I just wash the pajamas more often, it's fine. But then my rational brain says, no, you don't need that. You're giving insomnia another cookie and it's going to leave you without any. Don't fall for the trap. And so this goes on and on in my head until I start with a racing mind, palpitation, shots of adrenaline as I'm trying to sleep. That said, I'm assuming the best thing to do is just face it, right? Expose myself to wearing another set of pajamas, even if it will hurt. Is there anything else you can think of? Maybe also listen to the thoughts, let it go and be patient. Thanks so much. So again, this was October 25th. And at that point, I actually just invited Michelle to check the playlist with, our speed bump playlist. And she said that was helpful. But as you, like, when you hear this, Alina, what are the thoughts that come to your mind?
Yeah, I mean, first, I can totally understand the frustration from all like coming through all this way and then feeling like you already kind of let go the whole thing behind you and then finding yourself in those behaviors. And I can totally understand that it can create a lot of kind of like, maybe for me, I had also the same situation with 4 months of good sleep, and then suddenly I'm finding myself again like in this kind of thinking. I feel a lot of guilt because or some sort of shame, or like, how is it possible? I thought everything is perfect and so on. And also another thing is that mostly like when people, and this is what like happens, I think it's very often like when person like shares also from coaching, like a person shares with me some sort of success and they feel like I'm really nailing it and everything goes perfectly, and then I'm waiting for a couple of days and usually they have a speed bump. And this is totally normal because the thing with the speed bumps is that our brain, like as being this crazy safety machine like that is always like on the alerted and looking for any threat, always tries to find out ways how to protect us. And when things go really well, sometimes it might get tempted, like either it's too good to be true, like things going so well, or any sort of like minor sleep disturbance already bring up like some painful memories, and then the brain like kind of like excessively maybe reacts to it, and then like person picks up on that, oh no, my anxiety returned and so on. So basically it creates this the whole experience. And I just want to say that I can totally relate to what Michelle is writing. And actually there was one like good analogy that came to my mind as you read this, is that it is so true that in the beginnings when you just started learning about insomnia, and the path is actually not that hard. I mean, like there are a lot of like fear, frustration, like a lot of unknown, but once the person starts learning about insomnia, learning that there's nothing wrong with them, they start feeling like peaceful, and then of course it reflects on their sleep, and they begin like building up that confidence and peace. But what I noticed is that the further you move on your journey, the more like the trickier those like sleep efforts, like the brain always tries to sneak in some effort, and those efforts become like literally invisible, or you cannot even spot them that easily. Because before, in the beginning, when you were like taking supplements, doing something like this, and then you start noticing at the end of the like when you're like really advanced in all this understanding of the issue, that everything becomes an effort, like wearing like certain pajamas is an effort, of course, like yeah, in the beginning, yes, but then if you stop doing that, isn't it an effort as well? Yes, it is. But then if you again go back again, so basically it becomes like the circle, and this is really normal. And I think of it as a if you imagine some video games, the first levels are usually the most satisfying ones and easy. You just you unlock some, okay, this is a sleep effort, what to do, and you feel all this kind of joy and rush from like playing that game. But then the closer to the ending, you feel like, okay, the level is too advanced, I cannot handle it, and so on. And that the end of the day, the end of the game is always feels like sometimes brings a lot of like desperation or like hard feelings, because it seems like you've gone through all this chunk of work, you've done all of that, and you're still struggling. But I look at it exactly as as you're progressing on the game. And to me, speed bumps, they might not feel good, or they might feel like totally horrible, but the way I look at them is that learning opportunity, because every speed bump there is to learn, like to teach you something new. And I like the knowledge or insight doesn't need to come right away, but when you look in hindsight, then like that kind of like building up that experience of experiencing like speed bumps one after another. And the more the more speed bumps you go through, the more you understand yourself, you understand insomnia. And then you reach at some point when you really stop really being concerned that much about having a speed bump, because you can handle it, it's like might not be pleasant, but you're still fine. So in a way, you kind of become like at peace with this, and you become like okay with like having any speed bump. And that kind of state cannot come, I don't think that it can come in the beginning, when you just have like some your first speed bumps, because you're still like there's so much more to learn about yourself, about how your brain reacts to things. And then and the way I look at speed bumps is that basically these are kind of like iterations, like learning curve, like there is one like kind of like a lesson that is presented to you, and then once you like kind of like overcome it in a way that you let go of control, then you learn something new. And the more of those kind of iterations you go through, the quicker you get to that place where you stop fearing those speed bumps. And once you stop fearing those speed bumps, they might still happen for some time, because the insomnia has a long tail, and you might still experience them, but you already kind of have some sort of like understanding, or some sort of like peace with this, like you're okay with this. And for me at the end, like those like speed bumps, they felt like, okay, it's probably like like my brain starts coming up with like thoughts like, oh, okay, maybe this is another like speed bump. And for me it's like, yeah, maybe it is my speed, beginning speed bump, so I'll just ride along, that's it, that I'm okay with this. And then basically I was okay with any duration, because there was no way to you cannot predict when the speed bump ends. Because usually what people get into those kind of traps, and I've noticed it in myself, that when you have like a speed bump, or beginning like the first night, when things start getting like you start feeling some hyper arousal, and then your brain was like, or you start thinking, okay, I can do it in 3 days, or I can do it in 1 day. And so this kind of thinking of predicting when the speed bump ends also prolongs the speed bump. So it's just, so when the speed bump comes, you just like kind of let it drive you, or whatever, like take you whatever it wherever it goes, and you are just passively just observing it and not not trying to involve with this. And yeah, usually my like kind of go-to thought here is that there's no way to predict how and when a speed bump ends, but it always does. And then you will be like, always you will be fine at the end, and basically this kind of like idea that comes from lots of like experience with those speed bumps, really eventually you start sleeping. There is no even question about that. So
Wow. Yeah, no, it's so well said, Alina. That's amazing. And that kind of last point you made about how when you saw that, oh yeah, I might be having a speed bump now, and then we'll see what happens. We'll get back to that one and see how that is so helpful. I definitely want to get back to that one. But there were two other things I want to talk about that came up to me, came in my mind that when you were speaking. And one is just to emphasize what you said about the pajamas here, which is I think so true and so insightful, that in the beginning, I have to wear these pajamas, whereas I won't sleep. It's kind of an obvious sleep effort. And you're starting to learn, like, okay, I can change it. Okay, great. Let's see. But then what if, like in Michelle's situation, she's, I think, slept well for like probably a year or like a long time like that. And now it's different. It's kind of like Michelle has so much understanding. She sees that, oh, wait, I have to wear these pajamas to sleep. That's kind of a sleep effort. But I'm aware of that. So therefore, there's no effort. Or is there? As you said, it becomes more murky and it can become a little trickier. Like, I just want to highlight what you said and no further addition to that. So insightful. And finally, I loved your video game analogy. So amazing. And I just want to add something that I'm going to turn this into an entire video, but I think you like this one. Have you seen the movie War Games?
I don't think so.
I think it's a classic. It was like, I saw it when I was probably like, I don't know, 12, and it was already a little bit old then, so whatever. But the story is that there's this young guy, like a boy, he's maybe like in his teenage years, and he's kind of this computer hacker. So he hacks his grade, he improves his grades and things like that. It's kind of fun. But then he starts hacking into like the Pentagon, and somehow it leads to this kind of supercomputer starting kind of doing decisions on its own, kind of becoming like an intelligent. And this becomes a problem because this computer is starting to think that the Soviet Union is like the enemy, and it's just about to fire these nuclear missiles on the Soviet Union. Obviously, it's a big problem. So the Pentagon, they get this boy into their command center. It's like, how are you going to fix this? And he's like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. And he starts to try to program it, change it, plug the gate, but nothing works. Literally nothing works. And then he finally has an idea. He's like, hey, can we make this computer play tic-tac-toe? Do you know that game? Like the X and the O's, right?
Yes,
Tic-tac-toe.
exactly.
And they're like, yeah. And then he's like, can we make it play against itself? And they're like, what are you doing? Yeah, you can do that. It's like, okay, let's do that. And you see this computer play tic-tac-toe against itself again and 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 again. And finally, everything just stops. Everything just stops. The whole nuclear thing blows over. There's peace, like, the red alarms go down, everything. And they're like, how do you do that? And he was like, well, I figured I had to teach it that it cannot win. So I just had it play itself over and over again. And finally, the computer learned that I can't win. And then everything just stopped. And, that's become this analogy for me of how like insomnia ends. It's kind of this teaching the brain over and over and over and over again that you cannot win. There's no fight. There's no enemy. And and this is why it can be frustrating. It's kind of like you teach it one time, but then it comes again. You teach it another time, but yeah. But how do you like that? You like that analogy? Does it make sense?
I love it. It's so brilliant. I love how like you can find it in the movies,
Right?
like great analogies. This is exactly, yes, like giving up the fight without any kind of like, okay, whether you're winner or loser, because like either way it doesn't matter, because there is like the game doesn't make sense.
Yeah, exactly.
It's no way you can you can win insomnia by like getting control over your sleep, because sleep is not under our control. And the way how you and that's why I don't really like the word like this kind of winning over insomnia,
Conqueror,
or like
yeah, stuff like that.
conquering insomnia. I don't like it, because there is some sort of this, like there is something you should fight, there is some sort of opponent, but there is no opponent, and basically the whole game is like meaningless, and you just step out of it. It's just, you don't play it. And that's the actual, yes. So
Exactly.
you cannot lose, but you're like, at the same time, you're not even like a loser because you're still sleeping, like when you quit the game, you will have the sleep exactly like you had before insomnia. That's the state for me, like the recovery or whatever, like whatever. I cannot find the better word for now, but basically when you can say that you're immune to insomnia, that means your sleep is just you sleep just like before you had insomnia, but with the knowledge about, with a huge understanding and great education about like sleep, how it works. Yes.
Absolutely. I just realized as we were talking, like you've used that analogy of a game before, etc. Yeah, totally. But anyway, let's get back to the messages here.
Yeah.
And so that was the one we read again was October 25th, and then I think Michelle said, oh, that was really helpful, and I kind of knew all this, but then there was another email, and this is the one where I asked if do you mind if I do make a video of this, and she said sure. So October 20th, so 3 days after the first one, and Michelle says, hey Daniel, welp, I had a 3-day row of okay sleep, but last night I pulled an all-nighter. And actually, I meant to say this before I started reading, but I'll just quickly say this here. When I interviewed Michelle when she was a guest on the channel, she, her experience with insomnia was this of the kind of the constant fear type situation where she didn't necessarily sleep very little, but it was like all her life was centered around controlling sleep for many years. And one thing she mentioned in passing, but that I still took note of in that interview, was like, she said, I was lucky, I never had a sleepless night. And to me, that was like, of course I was happy for her, but at the same time, it was this kind of like this element of I'm happy. I'm kind of like, I don't want to have that. I hope I don't get that. And I think something like that. I took note of that, and you'll see why I bring that up as we continue reading here. Last night I pulled an all-nighter. My brain has been fixing on some stuff that makes no sense. It will send me thoughts like, go check the door if it's locked, or check if the curtains are clean. The reason it does this is so that I can check and they won't be a problem for me not sleeping. Anyway, that's one thing. Then, whenever I was falling asleep, the jerks would wake me up. So I went ahead and went to the living room and listened to some music. Then I knew that when I went back to bed, I was going to get my bed all hairy because my dogs sleep on the couch. So I had to use a lint roller almost every time. Otherwise, getting back to bed with my brain would be like, you're hairy. Then I finally stopped caring about the bed being hairy, and I was even falling asleep in it and on the couch, but I still would wake up with hypnic jerks. I've been very strong and haven't taken any sleeping pills, teas, anything else, but I believe the rituals of checking the door being locked a few times, using lint rollers, even if I'm around here all day, and checking if my car is locked, have some kind of efforts ritual to them. Sometimes I'll just tell my brain, it doesn't matter. You already did this once. No need to double check. You sleep fine, and all that will suffice. But some other times I have this huge urge to go to do that, or else I won't sleep. I know that's my fear and my sleep anxiety. I use mindfulness and have tried noting the thoughts, tell myself that they don't matter, but some thoughts will stick. It is though my mind is constantly looking for the thing to consider a threat for me to solve it and sleep. Really weird. Staying positive anyway. I haven't slept and I feel okay. A little of anxiety sensations here and there, but no panic attacks. I just don't know what will happen tonight. I've never gone 2 days without sleeping. I know my body will make me sleep eventually, but I'll anyway. Maybe I answered my own question as I was writing this, but do you recommend anything else? So one element that I felt was maybe important to talk about here was this element of like, this has never happened before type of thing. But overall, when you kind of read the second message, maybe a lot of overlap actually from what we already talked about. But overall, what are your thoughts when you see this, Alina?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like exactly as you said, like when there's something like that never happened, that's in itself, this event can trigger, like, it's in a way some sort of like um acceptability or threshold that you're usually like, like referring to, and which is basically, I'm okay with this, but I'm not okay with that. And then it's kind of like becomes like a trap, because like it might be that Michelle didn't have those like all-nighters, and now like she experienced one, and now it's kind of like since it's new, it's like there is a lot of like fear involved and then a lot of unknown. So basically the brain again like feels like threatened, and it is normal to feel that way. So it's even like, I always like this like to say that when things are not normal, this is where our brain like gets attached. And without about this kind of like this rituals of checking this all sorts of things before sleep, like checking doors and so on. I mean, those actions as such, they don't have any impact on sleep. Like, it doesn't matter how many times you will check, it doesn't matter, but the way how you think about it and feel about it, like when you think like, okay, I shouldn't do that, I know this might be, so this kind of process of like of evaluating your actions, or having some sort of like attitude towards them, like, okay, I shouldn't do this, I should do that, and so on, that creates the whole struggle. And I think like here awareness is, or like being mindful of that kind of like quality of our brain, that it's always like gets attached to the things that are unwanted or abnormal or something like this, and it triggers like with more hyperarousal, that is absolutely normal. And I think taking like some sort of like breaks, or like pause for a while, and just to see what is happening there is really helpful, because when you give yourself that break and you look at what is actually happening without any judgment, without any sort of like, what should I do and so on, and then you can make like decision after that, like if whether you decision could be, I'm okay with this, I let it be there. So it's but the thing is that you gain clarity by applying this awareness. So
yeah,
when things
totally.
are unwanted or abnormal, or you think that they're unwanted or abnormal, this is usually why they might persist.
Yeah, I'm just going to highlight this for everyone that's tuning in here, that I totally agree. And like on the surface, there is some logic to like checking that the door is locked, and that it's just something we normally do, like part of a
That's
routine,
even common sense. Like if you check,
right?
like why not? Like everyone, even like good sleepers, they would do that if they would think, okay, I might not have like locked the door or something like this. But
Yeah, totally commonsensical. And then but then in the state of fear that Michelle is so aware of, as you said, then it can become like, maybe I should check again, maybe I should double check, triple check, four, and then you check it 5 times. And as you point out, Michelle, Alina, you point out, is that checking it 5 times, you first of all, you're aware of why it's happening, which is always helpful. There is a component of fear there, but as you said, it's not a problem unless we say, why did I check it 5 times? I shouldn't have checked it 5 times. Something's wrong with it. I checked it 5 times. So it's the self-criticism that creates some struggle. And it's kind of like the heart of OCD, right? Where it's like, I can't do this. And then it becomes so much pressure that you do it again and judge yourself to do it. And then there's kind of, it becomes its own loop. So very, very well said. And, if to sort of like, oh yeah, and some other things I just want to add for Michelle here is that I'm super glad to see that even through this, you're positive, you're making jokes, etc. That's so nice to hear, and then to sort of like, to me, almost like summarize something that I feel is so helpful with the speed bump situation, is going back to what you said before, which is in this message from October 25th, we can see that Michelle is sort of like in a state where she's sensing that something is up, like something is not quite right. I'm feeling anxious. Maybe I'm going to have a speed bump. But then there's also, and then as a kind of natural thing, that becomes, how do I prevent that? And really, that is why, it becomes an issue, right? It's like the attempt at trying to prevent it, make it not happen. That is the tricky thing. It's kind of like, to me, that's kind of the whole speed bump thing kind of boils down to, like, if you don't try to prevent it, then it won't be so troublesome. And it's exactly what you said. So I don't know if you want to comment or expand on that, Alina.
Exactly. It's basically, and if you take like step even back from that, okay, there's desire to prevent this, where this desire comes from. And I think, and this is something that we talked on in one of the drop-in classes in the school, that the need to prevent speed bump, like for me at least, like I want just to share, is that when I started, like, I had no, problem sleeping for a long time, and then I again started having this, like, it was like a big speed bump. It was like, it lasted like several months, but it was like this kind of, very, like, lots of ups and downs. But in general, it was kind of like a tough period for me, and then I realized that the thing that kind of triggered the desire to prevent that speed bump was me thinking that I am a good sleeper again. So I started being, I started identifying myself with sleep in a way that, okay, I'm a good sleeper now. I used to be a bad sleeper, now I'm a good sleeper, or something like this. So having this sort of like sleep identity is something that is very, like, it sets you on that path of your brain trying to find ways to disprove, or find some sort of like, are you sure you're a good sleeper, So, and just like by thinking like about yourself, okay, I'm a good sleeper, and then any minor sleep disturbance, such as, for example, you forgot to, like, lock the door or something like that, can trigger this kind of like your brain's desire to make really, really sure that you are okay, like you're safe, that you are not a bad sleeper or something like this. So I really think like another part of basically how to accept those speed bumps is to kind of allow themselves, allow yourself to like to have them, and having any sort of like sleep like identity in terms of, I'm this kind of sleeper, I'm that kind of sleeper, doesn't really help here. It's usually when you're just a sleeper, right? Like, there is no adjective really there, and cannot be, because sleep is a function of the body, like breathing, like a digestion or anything else. So there is no way how you can, arbitrary, like, say, okay, he's a good sleeper or something like this. But when you think in those categories, this is something that can really set you up for lots of struggle, because, like, if you're a good sleeper, you want to maintain that status. If you're a bad sleeper, you want to improve that status.
Exactly.
Either way, there is a desire to do something about your sleep, and yeah, that's tricky.
100%. Yeah, nothing to add. I would just say that I think I really think, thanks to you, Alina, this episode brought so much value to anyone who has a speed bump. Hopefully to Michelle specifically, and to our speed bump playlist. So I just want to conclude there and say thanks so much for coming on, Alina, and hope to have you back there soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, bye bye now.